From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
The Nanaimo RCMP is pleased to share that the 48-year-old woman, Anita James, reported missing on October 27, 2023, has been located safe and sound. The missing wheelchair-bound woman's support network was very concerned for her safety as she requires daily medication. Shortly before 11:30 a.m. on October 27, 2023, Frontline Richmond RCMP responded to the area of Westminster Highway and No. 3 Road after receiving multiple reports of a serious motor vehicle collision. A dark-colored Tesla was found lodged in the front of a restaurant in the 6,000 block of No. 3 Road. A 46-year-old woman from Burnaby was critically injured at the scene. She went inside of the business prior to the collision. As of October 30, 2023, her condition has been upgraded. The driver of the Tesla, a 20-year-old from Richmond, was uninjured. Due to the location of this collision, the area was closed off for several hours while first responders attended it. Neither alcohol or drugs are considered factors in this collision. Indigenous communities all over British Columbia can expect new or improved outdoor basketball courts. Our reporter Liam Higgs has the details.
New basketball courts are being put in all across BC thanks to a program called Court Projects. The program is a collaborative effort of the Canadian Elite Basketball League and the Indigenous Sport Physical Activity and Recreation Council. The first courts that are underway are in Chilliwack, Nanaimo, and Abbotsford. Also, 28 courts around the Lower Mainland have been upgraded thanks to the project. Currently, basketball is the most popular sport amongst Indigenous youth, and this program will help even more find their passion and stay active. Communities can reach out to the Vancouver Bandits if they would like to get involved. Liam Higgs, 1680, The Crow.
And we have Liam Higgs here with us to answer some questions. Liam, are you there?
Hey, Philip.
So, Liam, what is the end goal of this program?
That's actually a really good question, Philip. The court project's goals are to enhance existing courts and build new ones, ensuring new and old courts have proper backboards, nets, rims, and fresh paint.
Amazing. What courts has the project already worked on?
Well, the 28 courts that have been upgraded are in Abbotsford, Surrey, Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, and Chilliwack. The hope is to see even more communities get involved in keeping youth healthy and active. Back to you, Philip.
Thank you very much, Liam. Haley Wishkinser is calling for mandated neck protection at every level in hockey after former NHL player Adam Johnson died from a cut by a skate blade during a game in England on Saturday. Wickenheiser is a four-time Olympic women's hockey gold medalist who completed medical school after her playing career and currently works as an assistant general manager for the Toronto Maple Leafs. She posted to the X platform, formerly known as Twitter, that the risk is far too great not to wear neck protection, even if it doesn't pass the so-called cool factor. Neck guards are not mandatory in the NHL. The Ontario Hockey League and Quebec Major Junior Hockey League mandate players to wear neck guards. Hockey Canada also requires players registered in minor or women's hockey to wear neck protection. Winnipeg Jets interim head coach Scott Arnill says he expects the NHL to look into the use of increased protection. Ontario is lowering the age for regular publicly funded breast cancer screenings from 50 to 40, which Health Minister Sylvia Jones says will help with early detection. The expansion will see an additional 130,000 mammograms be completed in the province each year, Sherry Wilcox, who was diagnosed with breast cancer in her 40s, says the announcement is a recognition of all the breast cancer patients and their families endure.
While it may be too late for us, this is an incredible opportunity for others going forward that hopefully will not have to bear the negative consequences of a later diagnosis.
The change in Ontario means that starting in fall of 2024, eligible women, non-binary, trans, and two-spirit people between the ages of 40 and 74 can self-refer for a mammogram every 2 years. The Saskatchewan Party government has announced 2 programs that aim to make home ownership more affordable and increase the availability of rental units. The government says one program is to rebate up to 42% of the provincial sales tax that's paid on the purchase of a newly constructed home. The rebate is available for homes with a total price of less than $550,000, and the reimbursement is reduced for homes between $450,000 and $550,000. The province says another program is to provide a grant that covers 35% of the cost to build a secondary suite. Only secondary suites built in single-family homes can qualify, and they must meet all national, provincial, and municipal bylaws. The province says $35,000 is the maximum amount it's to provide for qualifying property. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on Liberals to exempt all forms of home heating from the carbon price after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced an exemption on home heating oil.
The federal government announced last week it is increasing the carbon price rebate for rural Canadians and lifting the carbon price off home heating oil entirely for the next 3 years. The changes come as affordability concerns leave their party flailing in the polls in Atlantic Canada. Poilievre wrote a letter to Trudeau on Sunday urging the Liberals to expand exemption to all forms of home heating, including natural gas, which is more common in Western Canada. Najud Al-Malis, The Canadian Press, Ottawa.
Canada expands drug strategy to prevent more overdoses and provide additional services. The federal government is expanding its drug and substance use strategy to try and save more lives and provide more services to people disproportionately affected by Canada's overdose crisis. The Public Health Agency of Canada says the drug landscape has changed with an increasingly toxic supply since the strategy was first developed in 2016. It also says the COVID-19 pandemic revealed gaps in the government's approach and the need for a more holistic, integrated response. The strategy's priorities include funding more community-based programs for prevention, treatment, and support. It also includes support for law enforcement, including training on stigma among substance users and testing out an overdose monitoring tool. The government has also announced that $21 million from the federal budget will be used to fund 54 harm reduction projects across the country. An ongoing strike seems to be coming to a close as General Motors reaches a tentative deal with United Auto Workers. ABC's Terry Morin has more on how the strike has impacted not only auto employees but other industries as well.
Leverage for the first time in decades is with the workers. And I think there's no question that we've seen this year of strikes because workers get it. They understand that right now they've got the upper hand and they're going to, try to make hay while the sun shines and try and get a better deal and rebalance a system that has seemed to many people to be out of whack.
This agreement follows the pattern set with Ford last week and Jeep maker Stellantis over the weekend. A former British cyber espionage agency employee who viciously stabbed an American intelligence worker has been sentenced to life in prison for attempted murder. Joshua Bowles will have to serve at least 13 years in prison. He admitted attacking the woman on March 9th in the Western England town that is home to the UK's electronic spy agency, GCHQ. The victim worked for the National Security Agency, which spies on electronic communications. She recovered after being hospitalized. The judge called it a politically motivated attack driven by anger and resentment towards GCHQ and women. FIFA banned ousted former Spanish Soccer Federation president Luis Rubial for 3 years. He was judged for misconduct at the Women's World Cup final where he forcibly kissed a player on the lips at the trophy ceremony. FIFA did not publish details of the verdict reached by its disciplinary committee judges. They had investigated charges relating to basic rules of decent conduct and behaving in a way that brings the sport of football and/or FIFA into disrepute. Rubiales resigned from his jobs in soccer in September under the pressure from the Spanish government and national team players. U.S. and coalition forces continue to come under attack in the Middle East and rising tensions over the Israel-Hamas war.
Two American defense officials say from October 17th to today, there were 23 attacks on bases housing U.S. forces, at least 14 in Iraq and 9 in Syria. Many of the drones and rockets used were intercepted and did not reach their targets. This comes days after the U.S. retaliated for earlier attacks, striking 2 facilities in Syria used by Iranian-linked militants, with what National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said last week was a key goal.
To have a significant impact on future IRGC and Iran-backed militia group operations.
The U.S. stresses the defensive strikes are unrelated to the Israel-Hamas war. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
Those were your news headlines for 12 p.m. Philip Kovacevic, 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trettenero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trettenero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Welcome everyone, I'm Max Mashman.
I'm Jake McGrail.
And we're doing The Monster Cast.
Nailed it. So Max, it's Halloween week, the week before Halloween, one of my favorite days of the year. And one very popular part of Halloween is haunted houses.
I love haunted houses.
You do love haunted houses.
I do love haunted houses. I mean, just the decoration, the aesthetic. Like you said, Halloween is one of the best parts of the year. And since you think that, I'm assuming you like haunted houses, right, Jake?
I mean, this was a common theme when working on this, the dichotomy of me enjoying Halloween, but I don't like haunted houses. I don't like the feeling of being in one, just the uneasiness. The feeling of being scared, it's too much for me.
So is it the jump scares, the decoration?
It's the jump scares.
Okay,
it's the jump scares.
I
enjoy the candy. I enjoy the trick or treating. I don't need this side of things.
You want to be spooked, but not too spooked.
Yeah, but I wanted to learn about haunted houses.
Yeah, so in the effort to learn more about haunted houses, we actually spoke to a couple of haunted house proprietors and a couple of horror authors.
Yeah, I mean, going in, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but like you said, we went to an expert.
So my name is Barry Brinkworth, and my wife Tammy and I are both co-owners of Brinkworth Dungeon Mansion of Monsters.
Brinkworth Dungeon began in Richmond over 20 years ago. It's now in Langley and is set to move again next year as Barry and his wife Tammy plan to sell their place and move elsewhere in Metro Vancouver. But no matter where he's been, Barry has always wanted to run a haunted house.
My very first haunted house was when I was for my 9th birthday. We had a house with a basement in Kerrisdale, and I said I'd like to build a haunted house in there. And they allowed me to do it and gave me a bunch of materials and all sorts of stuff, and then I just kind of ran wild. And I had 7 friends and I toured them through and scared them. Last year was actually the 50th anniversary really of Brinkworth Dungeon. That's where it was all started.
And one interesting thing I found about Brinkworth was that it was all homemade, and like we got to tour his workshop a little bit, we got to see the process he goes through, and it's clear he puts a lot of effort into what he's doing.
Yeah, the workshop filled with so many different projects that he's working on. He pointed out one piece he really liked, this hand-sculpted figure of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, made out of styrofoam plaster Paris. He said almost 400 hours of work had been put into that one sculpture. And I mean, the dungeon, it's inseparable from their actual home because it's literally attached to their actual house. This whole structure that the haunted house is in, it's just, no matter what time of year it is, he's always working on that haunted house.
In my head, it's a year-round thing. It's happening like literally 24/7. On average, it's usually about 12 weeks before Halloween, before we're going to open. I usually start, okay, now this has to be done and move around. And then because this has been here for 11 years, it always needs repairs.
And even before you go into the house, it's also crazy because there's so many decorations, just like basically in a weird little winding maze through his garden outside. And then you arrive at this weird little detached kind of structure thing. It all felt very creepy. It all felt very Halloween. It always felt very spooktacular.
There weren't any of the house's scare actors that we went through, which personally I appreciated that. But it was still a creepy journey winding through the house as we did. Okay, so we've made it inside now.
So we need to go down the stairs to the dungeon.
Yeah.
Oh. That is very Haunted Mansion style.
Okay, yeah, so the door just opened on its own. And it is a dark hallway. I assume we have to go through these curtains, so Max, you're gonna go first.
I'm gonna go first?
You're gonna go first.
Okay. Wish me luck.
The roof is also leaking, which is which
it adds to the aesthetic.
It's not intentional, but it does very much add to the aesthetic. The hallways and the ceiling are very cramped in some spots. Like, the ceiling above our heads right now has got to be at most about 6.5 feet.
So many like little windy things, you can't see what's around the roof.
Yeah, very twisty turny. Oh. There's a whole Egyptian mummy section. There's just like, went from a house to a stone temple. Now we're just like in a cave underground.
Every horror pop culture reference you could want is here. So, one thing that you might not have heard from the audio there was a jump scare at the end. Even though there were no scare actors, Barry, being the sassy little guy he was, decided to don a costume and jump scare us himself. And unfortunately, we did not capture Jake's reaction to that, but...
It wasn't my fault. I was recording the audio. I don't know what happened. I
Sure,
might have
Jake.
I might have pushed some sort of button when I was startled or like shook my phone in some way. But no, I mean, I wish we had it. I suffered, and it wasn't even for the content.
Yeah, it wasn't for the content. And I mean, it was spooky. I mean, initially I almost thought he was a decoration, and then
Yeah, I mean that's really goes back to why I'm not a huge fan of haunted houses, because going through the rest of the house and appreciating the artistry there, I thought that was cool. It was fun seeing all that creativity, all the creepiness. But then I just don't get why people enjoy that feeling of sudden terror and being scared in that way.
Yeah, but someone who might get why people enjoy that sudden terror and being scared in that way is horror author, local Vancouver horror author, Christopher O'Halloran.
I think most people want to feel the danger. And we see that a lot with, action movies and thrillers and everything. And we see that a lot with the proliferation of true crime these days.
And Chris also thinks there might actually be a real-life benefit from consuming horror as a genre.
Maybe it prepares them for the real world. It prepares them for feeling those feelings, like experiencing those feelings in a safe environment on a page or on a movie screen. It allows you to find some sort of peace for when that actually happens.
I mean, Max, I don't know about you, but for me personally, I don't know if anything will prepare me to have a feeling of peace when someone wearing a clown mask jumps up from behind a wall and wields a knife at me. But that's just me.
And speaking about feeling horrified in the moment, we also went to another haunted house, one called Cougar Creek, which was almost like a haunted village.
And then while we were there, we spoke with Heather Gibbons, one of the longtime staff members at the place.
The funny thing is, I'm not really into horror, but I love the atmosphere. It is a crazy, fun atmosphere. People love it and hate it and love to hate it, if you know what I mean.
So now we have someone not even that into horror working at a haunted house. I thought that was like the most important thing you had to put in your job application.
Yeah, well, I think Heather just loves the work because of the social element of it. I mean, according to what she said, and the actors, and like just kind of the vibe and the experience.
The customers are great. They come out of the house breathing very hard, and sometimes even worse than that. But they love to talk and tell what they experienced, what they enjoyed, and that sort of thing. The actors are crazy, but so much fun.
Something that we learned from both Heather and Barry when we went to their haunted house is that the haunted house community here in the Lower Mainland is actually one that can be fairly interconnected and fairly friendly with each other.
Yeah, I know. It kind of surprised me too, but according to Heather and Barry, who both already knew each other and had visited each other's haunted houses very close to the interviews
just a few days before we spoke to both of them.
And apparently, so a very interconnected community and a lot of friendly competition.
In BC, there aren't that many haunted houses, so it is a community. Of course, they want to keep their secrets, and you don't ever reveal everything. You always hold a few things back, but they do work together as much as possible.
I really didn't expect going in how much we heard from both haunted houses we checked out about the feeling of community.
Yeah, but I guess like all the actors are all local, right? All the staff are all local, and they're doing it as almost a community event. I mean, I know both haunted houses donated to the food bank. I know for Barry, it was a big part of the reason he started his first kind of professional one. I mean, his first one was when he was 9 years old, but
yeah, first professional one.
First professional one was to raise donations for the food bank, and what he actually told us was that at the time, very unique model, and then he realized that like everyone else was also doing that, which is kind of crazy, honestly. That you have a community of monsters, spooky people, but they're just sweethearts wanting to get back to the
we're
community.
We're in the business of scaring people, except also at the same time we're doing all this charity work for the same people that we're scaring. And so another common theme is that these houses, they're run by artists, and this is really a way for them to express themselves. They put a lot of effort and care into their work, and it's on top of being about scaring people, it's also this way of just showing off all of this passion that they have.
Our cost to actually do this is like, it almost makes it impossible to do it, but I have so much passion for it. I'm an artist. It's expressing yourself and doing something you're really passionate about. So my thought is, if a child goes through here and sees something and sees that somebody has made a monster from nothing or carved a wall, they might go home and say, can I stay up a little bit later? I just want to draw something. I said, and that guy might grow up and be in the movie industry.
I mean, that concludes our spooktacular, horrific, horrifying haunted house experiences. Any last thoughts on that, Jake?
I mean, I can say that haunted houses, still not for me personally. I mean, I do get why people like you, like Barry, like Heather, like everyone else do enjoy them. I feel like I'm someone, I can appreciate them more from a safe distance.
So your opinion wasn't changed on these?
Not too much. I mean, I enjoyed hearing more from their perspective, but and seeing the artistic side of it, but I don't think I can be convinced to enjoy jump scares.
Well, Jake, let me tell you, my opinion did change.
Oh, what is it?
For the better. I love them even more now.
We didn't think we could keep climbing higher, but we keep climbing higher.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that'll do it for this episode of the Monster Cast.
And until next time, happy haunting.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
from the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus. This is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Update. Indigenous communities all over BC can expect newer, improved outdoor basketball courts. Our reporter Liam Higgs has the details.
All across BC, thanks to a program called Court Projects. The program is a collaborative effort of the Canadian Elite Basketball League and the Indigenous Sport Physical Activity and Recreation Council. The first courts that are underway are in Chilliwack, Nanaimo, and Abbotsford. Also, 28 courts around the Lower Mainland have been upgraded thanks to the project. Currently, basketball is the most popular sport amongst Indigenous youth, and this program will help even more find their passion and stay active. Communities can reach out to the Vancouver Bandits if they would like to get involved. Liam Higgs, 1680, The Crow.
A group of big businesses, community groups, and stores think that there's a big problem with street crime and violence in British Columbia. People are afraid to walk on the streets after shopping, workers worry about being attacked, and local stores are losing money due to theft. The president of London Drugs, Clint Mallman, said, quote, "Every British Columbian knows the escalation in crime and violence in our communities has reached epidemic proportions, and governments need to step up and do their jobs to make our streets safer," end quote. The government has started a $10.5 million fund to help small businesses pay for damage from vandalism, and it allows businesses to get money for fixing things that were damaged and for preventing more damage. This program will be managed by the BC Chamber of Commerce starting on November 22nd. A Penticton Theatre has premiered a new play that revisits the early witch trials in Europe and Salem, Massachusetts. Our reporter Jocelyn Chappelle has more on the research that went into creating the play.
Just in time for Halloween, the play highlighted stories of the real people who formed the ideas held today about witches. Witch hunting was a practice that mainly targeted women of various ages. Researcher Vanessa Yarmchuk searched through court documents and did analysis on the topic for the play. She hopes people are able to learn how the past isn't all too different from today.
From us, there's a tendency to look back at previous eras in history and think of people as if they were simpler or more uniform. But we've always been complicated and varied. There's always been a huge variety of different kinds of people.
Yaremchuk was excited to work on a project that historically has been misinterpreted and to see it humanized through storytelling. The play, which premiered this weekend, featured local Vancouver talent as well. Jocelyn Chappelle, 1680 The Crow.
The full interview will be airing at 3:15 local time for our For the Record segment. Maine authorities are actively investigating the state's worst mass shooting. They're looking closely at the suspect's past dealing with the police and signs of mental health problems and violent threats. Officials have disclosed that the shooter received a mental health evaluation last summer when he started acting strangely at an Army training center in New York. A notice sent to law enforcement after the recent attack said the suspect had spent 2 weeks in a mental health facility because he was reportedly hearing voices and making threats to attack a military base. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared that he has no intentions of resigning, despite widespread public outrage stemming from the deadly Hamas raid on October 7th, resulting in the loss of over 1,400 Israeli lives and triggering the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. Additionally, Netanyahu has firmly stated his refusal to agree to a ceasefire.
Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen.
The Palestinian death toll in the Israel-Hamas war has now surpassed 8,000 people, according to the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza. In a positive environmental update, 3 rehabilitated sea turtles have returned to their natural habitats following their recovery at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium in Florida. These turtles were brought to the facility on Florida's Gulf Coast over the past few months. Last Thursday, a juvenile green sea turtle named Sparkler was released at Fred Howard Park near Spring Hill, Florida. Additionally, a larger green sea turtle named Toast and a Kemp's Ridley turtle named Loaf were released the previous Monday in Homosassa, which is situated to the north of Tampa. Now taking a look at the weather, sunny conditions through the day with the high of 12 degrees. Trick-or-treaters won't need their raincoats tomorrow night as showers are not expected until Wednesday. And you know the saying, when it rains, it pours. That's all for your 12:30 news update. I'm Jagraj Lally. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trettenaro.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is 1680 The Crow, and I'm Melanie Levesque. Today I'll be speaking with Isabelle Cote, an SFU marine ecology professor who is part of the Salty Science rowing team. Isabel and her Salty Science teammates, 3 other women who work in the marine ecology, biology, and sciences field, are preparing to row unsupported over 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. They also have a fundraising goal of $500,000, which they will donate to ocean conservation organizations. Isabel, thanks for speaking with me. To start, what inspired you and your team to take on this challenge?
Yeah, so one of our team was in Antigua in the Caribbean when that race, which is an annual race, ended about 3 years ago. And she thought it looked really fun. And so she contacted the 3 of us to ask if we might want to consider something like this. And we all said yes really quickly. And because most of the teams do that race and fundraise at the same time, we basically decided that our fundraising goal was going to be towards ocean conservation because the 4 of us are marine biologists.
Your project is obviously very exciting, but is there any part of you that's scared for any unforeseen circumstances that could occur while you're unsupported going across the Atlantic Ocean?
Oh, it's extremely scary.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's part, we all have a big sense of adventure. We've all done pretty crazy things. So 2 of my teammates have actually worked on sailboats that have crossed oceans. So between the 2 of them, they have about 7 years of experience crossing the Atlantic and the Pacific and the Indian Ocean. So there's a lot of offshore experience. But none of us had ever rowed as of 3 years ago. So we all came at this, completely new, and we all took a learn to row course 3 summers ago, and we've basically never stopped rowing since.
What are some challenges that you're expecting to face when you go on your trip, like weather and other different difficulties that could get in the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, you probably saw a picture of the boat. So the boat is open to the elements. So when you're rowing, the rowing stations are completely open, which means that, the sun's going to be a big factor, rain if there's rain, wind, waves. The people rowing generally get pretty wet. The rowing schedule, so the elements is one thing. The rowing schedule is 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 24 hours a day. So sleep is going to be a big factor. So we're going to have to get used to, sleeping in small chunks instead of one big chunk at night. And then just the physical exertion of rowing 12 hours a day means that we have to ingest a lot of calories, and some of us are probably going to get seasick, which means that keeping up with the calorie output is going to be difficult at times. And then there's the monotony of things. I mean, every so often there's going to be something exciting that happens. We'll see whales and sharks and things like that. But I think that most days is probably going to be just rowing on an ocean that seems empty.
How are you guys preparing in terms of supplies and food and other essentials that you'll be needing throughout the trip?
We have to bring everything. It's a race that's unsupported. So the boat actually, we trained this summer. We bought the boat 2 years ago. The boat's been in Florida where one of the teammates lives. This summer, the 4 of us got together and we trained together for 2 months in Florida on the boat. And by the end of August, we had all of our food organized and stored in the boat. We had all of our, we have a massive medical kit. We have a massive sort of spare parts kit and tool kit. And I mean, you name it, we've got, spares for everything. So everything was packed on the boat, and the boat was ready to be shipped. And then as of yesterday, the boat arrived in Barcelona. Then it's going to go from Barcelona to the Canaries. It takes a few weeks to clear customs, and then it's going to get shipped to the Canaries, where we'll meet it at the end of November.
What kind of reaction have you and your teammates gotten from your friends and family when you talk about your trip?
And nobody has told us not to do it. Everybody's excited. Most people say we're crazy. Yeah, you're crazy is probably the general reaction to when we tell people this. But everybody's pretty excited because it's kind of a, different thing to do. It's pretty monumental.
So I see you have a fundraiser coming up tomorrow at SFU. The tickets for that are still available on Eventbrite, but how much have you raised so far?
So we have raised about $200,000 roughly. But our overall goal, which includes covering all the race costs and covering the money that we want to give to charity, our overall goal is $500,000. So we're really in fundraising mode right now, and we're hoping to get, big sort of corporate sponsorship. So we've contacted, so far. I mean, we keep a list of all the companies we've approached, and we've approached like more than 500 companies, and we've been getting a lot of stuff in kind, which has been great. But now we really need sort of the cash, for the charities, and so the fundraiser that's going to happen tomorrow night is a small effort towards that, and it's the first one to happen in Canada because half the team's American, half the team's Canadian, and most of the stuff we've done, the fundraising that we've done, has been in the U.S. so far.
So what causes and organizations is your trip supporting?
There's actually 3, and they're all very different, but they're all joined in their purpose to increase capacity, local capacity to contribute to marine conservation. And the 3 organizations do that in very different ways. So 2 of the organizations are, they're American. One of them is called Shellback, and it was actually founded by one of the rowers on our team. And what Shellback does is that they provide training to young people to become scientific divers, and then they bring them to various places in the Eastern Caribbean, to countries that don't have the capacity to collect underwater data. So Shellback collects underwater data and then hands it over to governments so that governments can make, data-based decisions about environmental management. So that's one of them. Another one is called Green Wave, and that's an organization that trains people around the world in impoverished communities to set up integrated aquaculture. So integrated aquaculture is basically low input, high output aquaculture that kind of mimics an entire ecosystem. So you can think, for example, having sea cucumbers and bivalves and seaweeds that all kind of feed one another, and all 3 can be harvested. So there's very little environmental impact for this kind of aquaculture, but it can bring a lot of income to impoverished communities. And so they do this around the world. And then the one that's based in Canada is the Bamfield Marine Science Center, which offers field courses and a base for marine research. And our goal there is to create a scholarship that is going to allow Indigenous students and students from underrepresented minorities to attend some of these courses and participate in research, because money is usually a big barrier to participation.
That's great. Thank you for speaking to me, Isabel, and good luck on the rowing.
Thank you. Bye.
That was the end of today's For the Record segment. Make sure to join us next time for more unique voices and inspiring conversations on 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trettenaro.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trettenaro.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.